Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Pass It Forward Video Challenge, Say What? We have about 75 people strong on the line, and our numbers are growing, and we really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. I wanted to let you know, by the way, this is Barb Cooper. I'm the voice behind the emails that have been sent to you. We have turned on the chat feature in this webinar, but we will be answering your questions after the fact. Also, everyone is on mute for easy listening at this point. And that's it. So welcome, and I'm going to turn the webinar over to my colleague, Ray Bowman. Ray?
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the National Council on Patient Information Education, NCPI, I want to welcome you to Webinar 1 for the Pass It Forward Video Challenge. We have a lot of information to share with you today, and we're excited about launching the Pass It Forward Video Challenge. So why don't we jump in? As you see on your screen, the Pass It Forward Video Challenge, we want to make sure that everyone knows exactly what it is. We've set up a video competition for young people age 18 to 25, and the reason that we want 18 to 25-year-olds to develop a video is to stimulate awareness and creative thinking and planning for the use of a set of resource materials that we'll be talking about in some detail today on the call. As you see on the screen, we have a portfolio of educational tools and materials, and those really form the content or the crux of the materials for the videos in development. What is the challenge? We're inviting young people to create a 2-minute video that answers the question, what creative strategies can help ensure that the 5 web-based tools and resources reach every college campus and community across the country? And how would you, the videographers in this case, use social media to help pass the information forward, to pass it forward? And the task is simple. You can pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the sites that we're going to be talking about and take a deep dive into those and use those materials and your creative instincts to develop your video challenge message. Some of the key dates that we want people to remember, and particularly the contestants, is Friday, June 7th. That's when the videos and the accompanying materials are due into NCPI. That's the date for the end of the competition and submission. And we'll be announcing the winners on Thursday, June 27, 2013. And at that point in time, we'll be previewing the winning videos as well. We're pleased to be able to offer some prizes in recognition of the winning videos. One is a trip to Washington, D.C., round trip to spend time at the National Recovery Month Kickoff 2013 to meet with key SAMHSA personnel and also to have a chance to network with lots of organizational leaders and participants in treatment and recovery. And the last thing is, why participate in the competition? One thing that's important to accomplish with your videos is to pass the messages forward to those in assistance and those in need. It's a great opportunity for fledgling videographers to develop their video and film portfolio and show their skills, and also to recognize receive national recognition for the videos that you create. It's also an awesome opportunity for a community service project. If you're involved with a club or organization or a school group, for example, now's the time to shine. Today's webinar goals are quite simple. We're going to be sharing the specifics about the Pass It Forward Video Challenge. And another goal is to learn about prescription drug abuse facts and resources for addressing the problem. We're going to take a review of each of the websites and the web platform Pass It Forward. And we're going to talk about the use of social media and video to promote messages and material. I'm now pleased to introduce one of the experts and participants in today's webinar. I'd like to hand off now to Natalia Martinez-Duncan from CADCA, and she's going to be talking about the problem.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Ray. What I'll do is I'll just do a brief overview of the prescription drug abuse problem. Hopefully, at the very least, it will serve as a reminder of sort of some of the basic stats that are out there about this problem. Next slide. And this slide really is to just kind of frame the issue for us. You know, I think we can all agree that prescription drugs serve a very important role in our lives when used under a doctor's care. However, the misuse of these drugs is really at epidemic proportions, and what concerns especially those of us at CADCA is the fact that it can put at risk young people, teenagers, and young adults. So what are sort of the main drugs that are really being abused right now? Well, this slide really pulls data from SAMHSA's Drug Abuse Warning Network, which looks at the rates of emergency department visits. And if you look at the slide, for both teens and people 21 and over, the top two sort of types of prescription drugs that are being abused the most are benzodiazepines, which are usually prescribed for anxiety or things like insomnia, and narcotic pain relievers. And of course, oxycodone products are a close third there. And one thing you can notice in the slide is that the rates of emergency department visits for abusing these drugs are actually higher among those 21 and older. But I will point out, and something I didn't put on the slide, is that you know, there is research showing that the use of abuse of prescription drugs is actually increasing among teens. In fact, there was just a study that came out this week by the Partnership Attitude Tracking Study, which found that a 33% increase over the past 5 years among teens when it comes to prescription drugs. So that's really some staggering numbers there. Next slide. So, you know, poisoning right now is actually the leading cause of death from injuries in our country, and nearly 9 out of 10 poisoning deaths are actually caused by drugs. And in fact, the number of drug poisoning deaths involving opioid pain relievers have more than tripled between 1999 and 2008. They actually jumped from 4,000 to around 15,000, so pretty startling. And opioid pain relievers are actually involved in more than 40% of all drug poisoning deaths in 2008. So big, big problem. This slide kind of just reiterates what I just said. You know, you'll notice here how the rate of overdose deaths from opioid pain relievers has really increased over the past decade. And then again, this slide really also reiterates my point. This increase that we're seeing is, I will point out that it's actually tracking along with the increase in the number of prescriptions of these types of drugs. So really getting to the heart of the problem. Next slide. Which is really the overprescribing of these medications. And in this slide, just kind of, you'll note in this slide that as the sales of prescription painkillers have increased over time, so have the number of deaths and the number of admissions to treatment facilities. So they're all really kind of tracking in the same way. Next slide. This is an interesting point. You know, there are enough prescription painkillers were prescribed in 2010 to medicate every American adult around the clock for 1 month. Again, you know, this really speaks to, you know, the heart of the problem, the overprescribing. What's interesting to note is that in the states, as you'll notice there, in the states with the highest levels of prescriptions are also the states with the highest levels of abuse. Next slide. So why do teens and young adults abuse or misuse prescription drugs? You'll see there are a variety of reasons. Interesting to point out that, you know, with teens ages 13 to 17, A lot of them said it's to party, or to experiment, to try something new. For young people, or the kind of like the college age group, 18 to 24, you see improving of grades, or to concentrate more in class. That becomes another reason. To reduce stress. So it's kind of interesting to see the different reasons for the different age groups. For us at CATCA, this really underscores the importance of comprehensive prevention efforts, because we know that the younger kids get involved with drugs, the more likely they are to become addicted. Next slide. So, well, what are these people abusing? So here again, pointing out the differences between the two age groups, teens and young adults. For teens, prescription and over-the-counter medicines account for most of the commonly abused drugs, everything from pain relievers to sedatives and stimulants. For those 18 to 25, data shows that they're abusing stimulants, sedatives, tranquilizers, and again, opioid pain relievers. Next slide. So this slide really just kind of wanted to give you just a couple points about what we think, we at CATCA believe to be the keys to really pushing back against the misuse and abuse of prescription medicines. We really believe that you need a comprehensive data-driven approach that mobilizes all of the key sectors or the key players in the community that have a role to play in reducing the access and sort of the over-accessibility of both prescription and over-the-counter drugs. And we also need to change social norms about the harms and misuse and abuse of these drugs. Too many young people believe that prescription drugs are safer than illegal drugs because they're medicines. So that's something that we really need to change. And now that really concludes my portion of the presentation. I want to turn it back over to Ray and also to Barb Cooper, who's a consultant on this project.
Thank you so much, Natalia. I always love hearing CATCA's perspective on these things. And now we're going to move right into really the site walkthroughs, really the meat and potatoes of this presentation today. And I'm going to start with the website itself, the Pass It Forward Video Challenge website, which I know most of you, if not all of you, have already signed on to. It's www.passitforward.info. And what you see here on the screen is really it captures exactly what this website is all about. Number one, our target audience, not only 18 to 25-year-olds, but also the organizations and agencies that work with that age group. The goal of this particular website is very, very specific. It really supplies the tools and resources, everything that you need required to enter the video challenge. The features in here, and I'm going to use this handy-dandy circling feature, and I'll do red. Up here for the Engage, basically that's where you're going to find information about the challenge and also webinar information. And here in Participate, basically all of our entry forms are in there, and also the rules and guidelines to the competition itself. You'll also find what we've called the fine print as we developed it to guide the development of your videos. And then finally, in the Learn More section here, we have information about prescription drug abuse. A lot of the points that Natalia brought up are essentially in that section. And finally, we have the webinar playback, which you can tell your colleagues the webinar that is happening today will actually be available on the Pass It Forward Video Challenge website for you to review at a later date. And, and this is basically just a very, very quick montage of some of the things that you see when you go on the inside of the site. Excuse me. The next site that I'd like to put our eyeglass on is Maximizing Your Role as a Teen Influencer. It's a Teen Influencers Workshop. And basically, there are two major components. What you see here on the left-hand side of the screen is actually a screen save of the PowerPoint presentation that organizations can utilize. And also there's a really wonderful resource guide in here, a comprehensive user's guide that organizations can use to really craft and develop a 45-minute to a 90-minute presentation. There are also resource links in here as well. As you can see from the slide, the target audience for this particular website are parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches, really the teen influencers who really impact our young people's lives. And the target, the sub-target of this particular website is really 13 through 17-year-olds. The goal of this particular website is to provide really a complete workshop module to educate and equip all of those teen influencers with the information they need to educate teens about prescription drug abuse. And again, as I was saying before, the features on this, the PowerPoint presentation and the presenter's guide. And sign-in is required on this as well. In other words, when you get to the site, you just need to fill out some information, and that will take you directly to these resources. And here's a montage of that, of all the different resources in this Teen Influencers Workshop. And finally, we get to Recovery Opens Doors, one of NCPI's newest additions to its resources. The target audience for this particular website are young people and recovery. And the goal is to really supply, as you can see on the screen, a real-life recovery pad that helps young people in recovery talk to their friends and other students about the power of recovery. This particular site is absolutely chock full of video tutorials that introduce each section, video vignettes, interactive tools, PowerPoint presentations, and a discussion guide. And I might make a note if I'm going to use this tool again. This particular section right here on the bottom, is where all the video tutorials are on this site. The site itself is organized onto 6 different pages, and in that particular spot, you will see video tutorials. I highly recommend that you take a look at those videos because they provide excellent examples of really what this competition is all about and what we're looking for. Okay, and here is a montage of Recovery Opens Doors. And that middle section in the bottom, as you can see, is actually a take from the videos. We also have some materials on the far right that are collateral that you can use and lift off right away and to put your logos so you can brand your own material. Some really good stuff in this particular website. So from here, I'm going to turn this over to Ray Bullman, who is the Executive Vice President of NCPI, and he's going to tell you about 3 other of our resources.
Thank you, Barb. On the screen in front of you now, you see a screen grab from SAMHSA's National Recovery Month. And NCPI is proud to be a National Recovery Month partner, and I'm sure that many of the organizations represented on the call are today. The Recovery Month website is all about telling the message that recovery in all forms is possible. It contains a wealth of educational resources. One, for example, is a toolkit of state-by-state resources. So in terms of encouraging localization about the video messages in development, you can focus in on what are the issues and what are the resources and materials available in each of the individual states. There's also a focus on prevention and treatment and recovery resources, so it's broad-based and it's deep in terms of what the site has to offer. There's a Recovery Month events locator. Find out what's happening in your community in terms of localization and getting creative ideas about messaging to pass forward about involvement in recovery and stimulating recovery programming in your community. There's also a Spanish language component to the site as well. So everything that's available in English language, I believe, or at least to a great extent, is available in Spanish language as well. I think the next shot is the montage. It just gives you a visualization or of the kinds of information that you'll find on the site. Okay, next one. Okay, here you see, again, it's a SAMHSA site. It's the Substance Abuse Treatment Services Locator. This tool allows you to zero in on the closest service providers in your community. You can find out the name, address, phone number, the website, and the distances, or the distance from you of a variety of the services available to focus in on treatment and recovery. You can find out details about services, providers, types of care, forms of payment, payment assistance. So it really is a resource right on screen to find out what's available in your community. And the next slide. And here you see a screen grab that helps represent the totality and the broadness and the depth of the treatment services locator. The next slide. The final site that we'll be talking about or want to share with you, and make sure that if you're talking with young people ages 18 to 25, or if you're a young person 18 to 25 interested in submitting a video for the competition, we'd also want you to take a look at the Prescription Drug Abuse, a resource kit for America's college campuses. This kit was developed by NCPI, but more importantly, we had the input from about 15 organizations who have their feet literally on the ground in college communities and local communities adjacent to colleges. The target audience for the web materials that you'll find on the college campuses resource kit are college students, peer educators, campus leaders, campus clubs, and captains of athletic teams or members of athletic teams, for example. Let me show you just a screenshot of the materials here. You'll find public service announcements. You'll find messages that are available and ready to reprint in newsletters, to reposition and pass forward through social media formats. And so we've offered a rich portfolio of web-based materials to draw from. I'm pleased at this point in time to shift gears just a little bit and to introduce Tara James from sparkaction.org. And Tara's going to be talking with us about social media. Tara?
Thanks, Ray. I appreciate that. So as Ray said, my name is Tara James, and I'm the Manager for Outreach and Engagement at sparkaction.org. We're an online journalism and advocacy site by and for children and youth, and our specialty is really in helping organizations use communications effectively to expand their impact. Today, I'm going to give you a few tips on how you can use social media to do just that. So a lot of us really treat social media as an off-the-cuff piece of our work, whether we're tweeting from an event, posting something on Facebook about our latest report, using a Flickr slideshow from our office holiday party. Any of those items are a great way to personalize your organization and share information, but they're really just the start of what you can do with social media if you are strategic and you plan ahead. Today we're going to look beyond the basics of social media to learn how to create messages and campaigns that invite conversation, how to use analytics to track message response, and how to stay nimble to adapt and learn from our social media campaigns. In particular, we'll look at how you can use online events like the Pass It Forward Video Challenge to connect with your supporters. But before we do that, let's start with a quick refresher about the elements of good social media. Thank you. Our slideshow master is reading my mind. So I like to think that there are three elements of using social media well: knowing your audience, being consistently strategic, and showing a little personality. So let's start with the first one, knowing our audience. We always want to be relevant with what we're doing on social media. So you need to know who you're trying to connect with, and you really need to know who they are because A, that lets you choose the right platform, and B, it helps you select relevant content for them. Finally, C, is it lets you use the right tone and language for maximum connection. You're going to design what your message is based on who you're trying to connect with. So then being consistently strategic is number 2. What is your goal? What do you want to accomplish with your social media channel? When you have a clear goal in mind, it is much easier to craft a strategy and the messages for how you will get there. The best social media is strategic and consistent and makes use of a clear, unique voice. You guys are going to hear me repeat these things over and over again today. The best social media is strategic and consistent and makes use of a clear, unique voice. You want to post regularly and with purpose. Off-the-cuff posts are fine, but you want to make sure they're balanced with planned, focused posts that speak to your mission. You want to utilize tools like TweetDeck and Hootsuite to schedule your posts in advance and track their impact. Analytics like Google Analytics or Clout can help you tweak your messages based on what resonates with your audience. And we know it resonates if it's getting clicks. You want to pay attention, be flexible, and adapt. Finally, you want to show some personality. Social media is meant to be more casual and personal than traditional forms of communication. So don't be afraid to give your supporters an idea of who the people behind the organization are. Be conversational, playful, and have fun with your messaging. My one caveat is going back to number 1. You want to know your audience. If you're trying to connect with school teachers, your tone is going to be different than if you're trying to connect with, say, lawyers, or if you're trying to connect with teenagers. So you want to be appropriate for who you are targeting. Next slide, please. Okay, so you've got your social media channels up and running. You know your audience. You're strategic and consistent, maybe a little tongue-tied, and you've got personality to spare. So what's next? If you have an online event coming up, like a tweet chat, an online survey, or a report release, you can use your social media to get the word out and to connect with your supporters online. It's a great way to build community. In this case, we'll be using the Pass It Forward video challenge as an example of a great excuse to create a dialogue with your people through social media. We recommend a simple 3-step process for running a campaign around a specific event. 1, craft a clear, simple message that you want to share. 2, share that message with your audience. And 3, listen and learn from their response. So let's start with number 1, crafting a clear, simple message that you want to share. In this case, the clear, simple message that we want to share is that the Pass It Forward video challenge exists and we want young people to participate. So step 1, creating a clear, simple message that you want to share may seem simple, but the fact is many of us use too many words to say what we mean. Social media by its very nature forces us to be concise. Depending on the platform you choose, you'll have more or less space to get your message across. So it's important to choose wisely and to get to the point. You always want to get to the point with social media. Twitter gives you 140 characters to work with. Facebook and YouTube give you a few hundred characters to work with. But if you run a Google ad, you only have about 30 characters to work with. And you have not met a challenge until you have to get everything you want to say about the Pass It Forward video challenge into 30 characters, and that includes spaces. So it may seem daunting, but it is possible to be effective and brief at the same time. Whenever we launch a campaign at Spark Action, we actually write out our communication strategy in advance. That means we create about 20 tweets, Facebook posts, ad copy, newsletter blurbs, and any other materials we think we might need during the campaign. Doing this in advance saves you from having to develop things off the cuff all the time, which can be remarkably stressful. And it can give you a clear, consistent voice across your campaign and make you more flexible as the campaign develops. So I know that creating sort of a static plan for what you're going to do for social media seems like the antithesis of flexibility, but it really is the foundation that you need to be flexible and effective at the same time. We live by the KISS motto in our office. Keep it simple, sweetheart. Translating big ideas or events like the Pass It Forward challenge can seem tough at first, but keeping it simple helps. Using simple language will make your post easy to understand quickly, And when coupled with a hashtag, it will help expand your reach. I'll give you some examples in a minute. You also want to keep your tweets personal and professional while you get in touch with your creative side. You never want to cross that line about whether it's tasteful or not. We call it social media for a reason. People follow you on social media because they want to know what you are up to and what you have to say. So don't be afraid to have a voice or show some personality. That will help you gain followers. It won't chase them away. The beauty of social media is that you get lots of chances to tweak your message. If you try a tweet or an ad that gets little response, don't worry about it. Adjust your language a bit and try again. We'll talk about this more when we get to step 3, review and revise. Okay, next slide please. So here are 3 samples. The third sample is a little funky, so just ignore the bullet points and read it as one line. But these are 3 samples of really brief tweets that you could do to promote the challenge. As you can see, the language is very simple. It does not spell everything out. Social media is not the place for you to be detailed. The links that you include in your tweets, your Facebook posts, your YouTube comments, whatever, that is where the substance and the detail comes from, not in the social media itself. So take that pressure off of yourself and just look for ways to get people to click the link, because that is your goal. So open the door to recovery. Very simple, very straightforward. You can read it in less than 3 seconds, and you will be good to go. Recovery is the word that we're using for our hashtag. Hashtags work like this. If you put a pound symbol in front of a word, anybody on Twitter who is following that hashtag, which is the combination of the pound symbol and the word, will see your tweet in their feed. If you guys haven't seen how this works, I suggest you go onto twitter.com and you pick a word, any word that you like, and you put in the pound symbol and that word, and you see what pops up. And you will see millions of tweets from millions of people around the world. It's very cool, and it's a great way to connect with what's happening. Okay, so step 2 is getting the word out. This is remarkably simple. You've crafted a message. Now you need to get it out to the world. Here are some tips that will make your life a bit easier. Use a social media manager like TweetDeck or Hootsuite to schedule your Twitter and Facebook posts over the course of your week. You've already got your posts and tweets written, so plugging them into the manager is a breeze. On Twitter, you should have anywhere from 2 to 7 tweets going out every day. But be sure you're mixing it up. No one wants to read the same message over and over again. So be sure to tweet about different topics throughout the day and night. And yes, I do mean night. Since you can schedule tweets for any time, we do recommend that you tweet from sunup to sundown. If you're tweeting a lot during the day, slipping in 1 or 2 campaign posts is great. If you're on the quieter end of the spectrum, keep it to once a day. On Facebook, you should be posting at least once a day. Again, you can schedule it, so mix up the content and the time of the day that you're posting. This is where the managers come in really handy. When you're running a specific campaign, keep posts about specific events to no more than twice a week. You don't want to spam your fans. One of the most common questions we hear is, how do I reach a lot of people when I don't have that many followers? The truth is, the more active you are on social media, the more followers you will gain. So to a certain extent, keep going, and you will build up your followers as you tweet or as you post. Here are some basics, though, for catching attention on Twitter and Facebook, starting with Twitter. Earlier, I mentioned that using simple words makes your posts easier to understand quickly. Let's face it, you're only going to get about 3 seconds to catch someone's attention on Twitter. With hashtags, that simple language can also be used as a trigger that will throw your tweet into a complete stranger's path on Twitter. People who are tracking a hashtag will see every tweet that contains that hashtag in their stream. So think of that as a strategic tool for you to use. Make sure you include at least 1 key hashtag in every tweet to maximize your reach. And if you're not sure what to use as a hashtag, go on Twitter and start plugging in some words that have meaning to you and see how many people are following it. Another trick is to tweet people strategically. So if there are organizations that are influential in your field, or people or organizations that have a large number of followers, tweet them. If you put a period in front of their handle, your tweet will show up in not only your stream, but in theirs as well. So you are effectively reaching all of their followers in one tweet. Facebook is a little more difficult because it has recently changed the rules about how you can directly connect with your fans. We recommend posting regularly and actively cultivating a relationship with your fans by responding to their posts and asking for their feedback. This will encourage them to share your posts with their followers. This applies to Twitter as well, of course. But if you really want a strong response, promoting your post or posts is the best way to go. Unfortunately, that is something that that Facebook charges for. Next slide, please. All right, so we're focused on listening wisely here. Listening and learning from the response of your audience is really important. You can do this in a couple of ways. You can assign a staff member to do this 100% of their time, and that is literally all they do is respond to tweets and Facebook posts and have that online conversation. For most of our organizations, that's not really an option. So it's a good thing there are some analytical tools out there that can give you a hand. Facebook has awesome analytics that are completely free. They call them insights. So if you log onto your page, it'll pop down a little section at the top of it that says Facebook Insights, and it gives you all kinds of detailed demographic information. It'll tell you what your top posts are. Really great information that you should dig into on a regular basis.
Tara, I'm
Yes.
going to interrupt you real quick. We had a question come in. Can you repeat the part about putting a period with a tweet to reach to another handle's followers?
Yes. Okay, so Twitter has some little tweaks or little quirks. One of them is that you can tweet somebody directly and they will get your message. Some of their followers might see it, but it won't go into their general stream. A way around this, and this is, Twitter has hundreds of millions of tweets a day, so they have a massive amount of information flowing through, which is why they've built in things like when you directly tweet somebody, they don't necessarily want to share it with everyone. A way to get around that is to put any character in front of a handle. And the handle, so like for Spark Action, our Twitter handle is the @ and then Spark Action. When you are on Twitter or you're using TweetDeck or Bitly or any other social media tool, if you put that @ in front of the name, it automatically makes it a link to that Twitter account. So if you put any character in front of that, that gives you access to their full stream of followers. We prefer a period because it's just more subtle and it isn't ugly. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Tara.
Sure. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Facebook Insights. Finding robust analytics on Twitter are a little more difficult. Most of the services out there charge a fee, but there are tools like Hootsuite, Klout, Twitter Counter, and others. If you Google, you will find dozens of tools that will provide you free analytics to give you an idea of how you're doing. If you want the really in-depth stuff, you are going to end up having to pay, and you'll find services that range from $10 a month up to a couple $100 a month. We really like Hootsuite and Klout and Twitter Counter. We find that we get great information off of those that are very helpful in letting us know what our audience is really responding to and helping us tweak our messaging accordingly. And when you put all of these different resources together, you've really got an incredible base for listening to your audience. Next slide, please. Okay, we've done the review, and now it's time to talk a little bit about the revising. Once you've taken a deep dive into your tweets, Facebook posts, and YouTube videos, not only to check your traffic and really celebrate your clicks, because it's always fun when you put a post out and you're like, hey, look at that, 150 people reposted it. But it's also a great way to figure out what has worked, what hasn't, and why, and who it worked with, especially with Facebook because you can get into those demographics. And then think about revising your messaging. So remember at the very beginning when I suggested that you write out a strategy and you pre-write your tweets and your Facebook posts in advance? Well, this is where that comes in really handy. If you've got your plan down, including your pre-written messages, you're better able to adapt and change that language as your campaign progresses. Is there a tweet that everyone loved? Great. Take whatever piece of that you think worked best and use it in other posts. Did you have a Facebook post fall flat? Not a problem. Take it out of rotation and try something new. You can also use your numbers to help you tailor your messaging to better resonate with your audience, to duplicate past successes, and to plan ahead to your next campaigns using what you've learned about what does and does not work. One of the things here that I would like to point out too is that when you are reviewing your different materials and you're seeing what really worked with people, pay attention to what type of post worked. Posts that include photographs and multimedia tend to really resonate with people much better than those that are just sort of, here's a fact. That's great. You know, people on social media really want something to look at and something to connect to. So please consider that as you are doing this great challenge, including links to the videos that your young people produce, as well as screenshots from those videos and sharing those on your social media. Okay, so that wraps my portion of it, which means I have the pleasure of handing over the presentation to Pat Gininger-Snyder, who is the partner and director of production for Rembrandt Films, and she will give you an introduction to the power of video.
Okay, everybody, you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So welcome to the world of video, which is what this whole task is. Next slide, please. Of course, I don't have to say how much we all are looking at screens at all times. But for nonprofit organizations, it's really wonderful to understand the valued use of videos and how they can be used in so many different ways, including promoting things about your organizations on websites. They can be used at fundraising galas, meetings, and educational seminars. And just following what Tara was saying is they are incredibly powerful for use in social media, such as Facebook and on Twitter, and also in blogging. And it all really depends on one thing. Next slide, please. And that is its length. So quite often you can create one video or videotape for one project and then edit it in different ways so that it can be used for a variety of different target audiences. And I think that you're hearing similar words that what Tara was saying, and also about the different websites that we're trying to promote here, and that is that you really do have to know who your target audience is. For example, if you're doing something for a gala benefit, it might be something that's very, very different than if you're going to post it on Twitter. But again, you can use the same video edited in different ways. And again, there are different formats that you can use. You can use MP4s, which can be used on YouTube and posted up on Vimeo and also Facebook and Twitter. And it can also be used for smartphones. And then again, if you are distributing videos about your organization and the world still is using DVDs, you can also create higher quality movie files. Next slide, please. So again, who's the audience? Now that was sort of a generic introduction to video and its power, but also what this is really all about today is thinking about the videos that you all are going to be creating for this challenge. And again, one thing to understand is that, you know, if you have a PC, you've got Movie Maker, and if you have a Mac, you have iMovie, and so that you really do have the ability to make movies at your fingertips. But something that's really important, again, is to who is the audience here. And again, we're speaking to young people between the ages of 18 and 25. And also we want you to really reflect the messages that you have been looking at the various websites, such as Recovery Open Doors and SAMHSA's Recovery Month. So in your video, it's really important to key in on those aspects of what's on those websites. And also the most important piece of this is how does your video that you're creating promote using social media to pass the message forward. So next slide, please. So with those three elements, right, I just wanted to talk to you just a little bit about the production elements in making your videos. So again, the very first thing that I always do when I'm sitting down with a client or if I'm creating something for myself is to think about how is it going to be used. And then if I'm going to write a script, which is very helpful to write a script because at least then you know what the flow of your video is going to be. And if you are going to have narration, for example, it's very, very important to make it breezy and sound like you're talking. And one thing that again I always do is read it out loud, because something that you would write in book form, in a composition form, might be very different in how you might say it. For example, in video, you often don't need a lot of words, and so the example that I gave here is it was a beautiful sunrise. There were so many colors like orange and yellow dancing on the dewy green fields. Instead, a beautiful sunrise, orange and yellows, dancing on the dewy green field, period. You know, you can get rid of a lot of words and people won't even know it. Next slide, please. Again, it's going back to what I was saying before, is do your research. You know, make sure you really study those 5 websites being highlighted, and also take a really good look at the social media that this challenge is having you use in order to get the message out. For example, when Tara was talking about the hashtags and the periods and the different elements that go into sending out tweets, it's really important for us to see that in this video. You know, play with those social media tools with Facebook. Make sure you get us to Facebook so that, and maybe even see how you might write something on Facebook as an example. Again, video is the word video means visual. So much of your story has to be a visual story. So definitely take a look at those websites. Also, have a very good balance in your content between talking heads, which is the person being interviewed or perhaps your narrator, and things that move, such as the moving graphics and any B-roll. And B-roll are those images. For example, if you're taking that beautiful dewy field, what you would want to do is see a photograph of that beautiful dewy field, because again, you want to tell a visual story in addition to the words that you're trying to promote. Next slide, please. Also, be creative, of course. That's the bottom line here, is make this creative and fun, and be creative about how you're presenting your video in this presentation. For example, you know, if you know how to do it, take screen grabs, or if you know how to take video from the Internet, take grabs from the websites that you're promoting. Also, in narration, you should decide whether or not you're going to have a voiceover narrator or whether or not you're going to actually see the narrator. For example, in the top photograph in this presentation, this was a CADGA project, and you see the narrator was an on-screen narrator as she was describing and talking about what this particular topic was about. So you get to decide that, whether or not you'll actually see your narrator or just hear your narrator reading, and that's called a voiceover narration. Next slide, please. And then another piece is that, you know, if let's say you do have an on-host camera, will the on-host be looking right into the camera as if that person is talking to you? Or, for example, do you want to do it more as an interview format, which is what you might see on 60 Minutes, for example, where you see the interviewer interviewing someone being interviewed. And one thing that often doesn't happen in many things, for example, when you're watching the news, you often don't see the reporter. So you just see the person being interviewed. So it is very, very important to make sure that whoever you're being interviewed repeats the question, because perhaps you won't see that person who's doing the actual interview. Next slide, please. And then this last slide really is about some of the legal issues, because this project is going to be used by all kinds of resources, including the federal government. You need to clear your music, and you also need to clear your video images and also your still photographs. And the way you clear that, there are a lot of free websites where you can go to and get free music. And it's over on the right. That's circled. If you go to any of those websites, you can get free music. Also, if you are videotaping someone for your in your challenge, be sure to get have the talent sign release forms. And again, that's in the bottom. We have release forms in the Pass It Forward info, a PDF that all you have to do is print it out and make sure that they sign it. Also, again, there are places you can go to that are very inexpensive, including Shutterstock, where you can buy a number of images. These are some of the images that you've seen in this video, in this section as we've gone along, are images that we actually bought for, it's about 6 or 7 images for about $10, $15, something like that. So again, it's very important, and because this is a project that's going to be seen by a lot of people, that you do clear those rights. Next slide, please. And then the last thing that I want to say is to make your video fun, make it creative, make it compelling, and make it interesting. And you never know if you are going to be the next great director. So good luck with everybody, and as we say in the business, break a leg. And now I'd like to turn this back over to Ray, if you could just take us home. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. And before I kick it back to Ray, we did have one consistent question that I'd like to clarify. We had some individuals asking about the URL for the website, so I want to provide that right now. It's www.passitforward, just like it sounds, .info. So that's www.passitforward.info. And Ray, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barb. As you see on the screen here, we're at the closing point for this webinar, but there are some important dates coming forward, and we need to pass that information to you so you can pass it forward to young people who are hopefully planning right now to start working on their videos. The video and material submissions due date, as we mentioned at the beginning, is Friday, June 7th. And we will be announcing the winners on June 27th in a follow-on webinar. Information about the subsequent webinars for Pass It Forward can be found on passitforward.info. Before we wrap up, I do want to thank everyone who's on the line today for making it possible to reach out to young people, encouraging them to pass their stories and messages forward. I also want to thank the presenting team, Tara James from SparkAction.org, Pat Snyder from Rembrandt Films, Natalia Martinez-Duncan from CADCA, Barb Cooper from Cooper Communications, and I also want to give a special thanks to SAMHSA for their support and underwriting for the Pass It Forward Video Challenge program. That concludes our webinar for today. And I want to thank you for your participation. We look forward to taking a look at all the videos.
And just so everyone knows, I am looking at the listing of questions. And, we have a couple minutes, okay? We had a question come up. Who is the audience you want these videos to target? Thank you, Emily, for your comment. And here's how you can share this information via social media. Yes, that's exactly the kind of the message that we're looking at. How can you share the information on this website through social media? And after listening to Tara and Pat today, it's really interesting converging all of these issues together. So my advice in that sense would be to somehow utilize social media and combine it with the images that are presented in the website, and as my son would say, I guess it would be a mashup. It would be mashing them up and combining them together. And so I think that's it. Yep. And any other questions that you have, please feel free. I'm going to put my email address on the screen here. Please go ahead and email me, as well as feel free to give us a call. All right? Thank you very much for your participation, and everyone have a wonderful day. You take care. Bye-bye.